2 weeks, we're back in Newark, New Jersey for the first time in 3 years for UFC 288, headlined by Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo for the undisputed UFC Bantamweight Championship.
Round to round. And that's not the way I want to win. That's not the way I envisioned this.
The UFC's Bantamweight division has been home to some of the most exciting fights in the promotion's history, featuring a roster of skilled and talented fighters who have thrilled fans with their speed, technique, and heart. However, despite the division's many highlights, it seems to be plagued by a series of unfortunate events that have left some of its biggest stars struggling to stay on top. From injuries and failed drug tests to unexpected losses and personal struggles, the Bantamweight division has been hit hard by what I am calling a curse. Since its inception in 2011, the Bantamweight division has seen 9 champions, each with their own incredible and somewhat dramatic story to tell. From Dominick Cruz's dominant run in WEC to Cody Garbrandt's meteoric rise to the top and sudden fall from grace, the division has been full of twists and turns. Despite the many achievements of its champions and contenders, the Bantamweight division seems to have a crown that's maybe too heavy. In this video, we'll take a look at some of the reasons why the Bantamweight division is considered one of the most cursed weight classes in the UFC.
That's not the way I want to win. That's not the way I envisioned this.
In a sport as brutal as mixed martial arts, injuries are a given. But some fighters are more prone to them than others. And one such fighter is Dominick Cruz.
Dominick, the Dominator!
Otherwise known as the Dominator, Cruz's glorious career has been marred by recurrent injuries. From his dominant bantamweight run in World Extreme Fighting to his eventual move to the UFC and his big wins against Uriah Faber and Demetrius Johnson, Dominick's ship was cruising until he tore his ACL in 2011.
To be one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and then you had a series of catastrophic injuries and surgeries.
He returned to the cage in 2014 and competed 4 times in the next 2 years.
Back from what looked like a considerable knockdown. You looked a little bit rocked. Just talk us through that moment.
I don't know. I haven't watched the fight, but I didn't think I was rocked.
Beating TJ Dillashaw to become the 2-time divisional champ in mid-2016. Before losing the belt to Cody Garbrandt in December of the same year. After his loss to Garbrandt, Cruz revealed that he was struggling with tendon disorders heading into the fight. The next 4 years were probably the toughest of his life.
3.5, almost 4 years of injuries where everybody left me, nothing was going right, my life was this.
Cruz was expected to return in 2017, but he suffered a broken arm, which ruled him out of his fight against Jimmy Rivera. He was then expected to fight John Lineker in 2019, but things went from bad to worse for him as he was forced out due to a shoulder injury. After nearly 4 years away from fighting due to injuries, Cruz stepped in on short notice to face Henry Cejudo for the Bantamweight title at UFC 249, where he lost by TKO in the second round and has been on a decline ever since. Sure, he's had some good wins since then, but the fighter known as the Bantamweight GOAT is now coming off a vicious knockout from Chito Vera. Although it seems that all GOATs eventually get slaughtered, the Bantamweight division seems to have been slaughtered too soon.
I mean, you can, but, you know, Muhammad Ali always said, I'm the greatest of all time. I believe I'm the greatest in this division that's done it. I believe I'm the greatest.
Once hailed as the next big thing in the UFC, Cody Garbrandt's hype train came to a crashing halt within a few months. When he signed with the UFC, the sky was the limit for him. And when he outclassed Dominick Cruz to win the belt at UFC 207, Dana White went as far as saying that he had the potential to be an absolute star.
I think Cody no love to be the next big star.
Nobody knows how Garbrandt went from being the best fighter in bantamweight to a mediocre one in the matter of a fight. In his first title defense against TJ Dillashaw, he was fighting with a lot of emotion given the history between the two. Garbrandt and Dillashaw were once teammates at Alpha Male, but after Dillashaw parted ways with the gym, their relationship turned sour.
For you to go into a fight with someone you don't like, who you used to be tight with and used to train with, that's got to be like doubly difficult.
It's not like I said I didn't like TJ. I didn't agree with a lot of things that happened.
In an attempt to teach his friend-turned-bitter rival a lesson, Garbrandt threw technique out the window and fought a wild fight at UFC 217. He did hurt Dillashaw late in the first round, but TJ was saved by the bell and came back to turn the tables on Garbrandt by knocking him out halfway through the second round. The two battled again at UFC 227, and Dillashaw's fight IQ prevailed once more as he stopped Garbrandt in the first round. On both occasions, Garbrandt was caught while standing in Dillashaw's face and swinging as if his life depended on it. After dropping a couple of fights against Dillashaw, Garbrandt lost in the same manner to Pedro Munoz. Cody even moved down to flyweight in hopes of turning things around in a big way, but even that didn't work.
But outside of that, my life was in shambles. You know what I mean? I wasn't good. I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't happy.
Most of Cody's failures were down to his personal struggles, but still, he looked like a shell of himself inside the cage. Credit where it's due, Garbrandt has indeed tried different things in his recent fights with some success, but he's surely not the fighter he once was. Cody Garbrandt is the Bantamweight division shooting star, a champion who shot up fast and quickly burned out.
TJ Dillashaw!
Thanks to his 2 title runs and his wins against some of the best 135-pounders on the planet, TJ Dillashaw was once regarded as one of the greatest, if not the greatest bantamweight of all time, until he had his fall from grace.
Start off, first and foremost, I cheated, right? I don't want to run around that. That's why even I announced it when you saw it was coming out. Like, I didn't want to create excuses. It was like, look, this is it.
After losing his bantamweight title to Dominick Cruz in 2016, Dillashaw bounced back with a couple of impressive wins and secured a title shot against Cody Garbrandt.
This fight's important to me to showcase that I am the best pound for pound bantamweight in the world, and then after this fight, I'll go down and fight Demetrius Johnson to solidify that I'm the pound for pound best in the world.
Dillashaw beat Garbrandt twice and then moved down to flyweight in hope of becoming a 2-divisional champion. Needless to say, that was probably the worst decision of his life. Not only was Dillashaw stopped by Henry Cejudo in a half a minute, he also failed his pre- and post-drug tests. Dillashaw was stripped of his bantamweight title and was handed a 2-year suspension as a result. And despite repeated claims that the Cejudo fight was the only time he took EPO, he hasn't been able to win fans or his lost glory. While out on suspension, TJ got double shoulder surgery since he'd have time to rehab and train. In July of 2021, TJ made his highly anticipated return against Corey Sandhagen. In a close and highly contested fight, TJ Dillashaw won by split decision. But in the first round, he suffered another injury, this time to his knee.
In on what's going on with me. Had knee surgery 10 days ago.
15 months later, he'd face Aljamain Sterling for the bantamweight title, where he'd lose by TKO in the second round. This fight came with controversy as well. Dillashaw revealed after the fight that he had been dealing with a dislocated shoulder for months, but still thought he could win the fight.
I completely blew my shoulder out the end of April as soon as I started getting ready for this.
Fans were pissed. They felt betrayed by the man they tried to give a second chance to. Later, TJ would announce that he was retiring due to the fact that his recovery time would be too long and he wasn't getting any younger. Another bantamweight champion who crumbled under the pressure of the crown. After Henry Cejudo retired at UFC 249,
walk away. I want to enjoy myself. I'm 33 years old.
Petr Yan beat Jose Aldo to win the vacant bantamweight title at UFC 251 in 2020. When he claimed the title, Yan was undefeated in the UFC, with a record of 15-1. He was the most feared fighter in the division, and many thought he'd dominate for years.
Like, people talk about best boxing in MMA, dude, Peter's, I think he's up there. He might be the guy.
But then, things took a dramatic turn when he put his title on the line against Aljamain Sterling at UFC 259. For nearly 3 rounds, Yan controlled the fight and was cruising to a victory. But a split-second error in decision-making cost him dearly. Seconds before the end of the 4th round, Yan struck Sterling with an illegal knee, and the challenger was given the win and belt by disqualification.
UFC Bantamweight Champion of the World!
Since then, Yan has been on a downward spiral.
I think maybe he thought he was coming up, and Piotr tried to catch him as he was coming up, but it was 100% illegal.
Yeah. In their rematch at UFC 273, Yan lost by split decision. In his next fight, he lost to Sean O'Malley by controversial decision before being ragdolled by Merab Dvalishvili. It's crazy how the tiniest of miscalculations kickstarted a series of misfortunes that have forced Yan way down the pecking order. And in order to reclaim his lost glory, the Russian will have to dig deep, this time without a knee. The UFC 259 controversy hasn't done Aljamain Sterling any favors as well. When he won the belt by disqualification, he was mercilessly trolled by MMA fans who called him a paper champ. In his rematch, he was still discredited by naysayers for not winning in a convincing manner, despite the fact that he dominated Yan on the mat for the 2nd and 3rd round. His second bantamweight title defense against TJ Dillashaw was subject to ifs and buts as well. When Sterling faced Dillashaw at UFC 280, he wasted no time in dragging the fight into his waters. It was a sensational performance by Sterling, but yet again, he wasn't given the credit he deserved. Much of the talk was about Dillashaw's dislocated shoulder.
I tore my shoulder and I had 5 professional fights, and I went 5-0. So I understand the pain that he definitely had to deal with going through that.
For as long as one can remember, the UFC bantamweight division has never had a smooth championship run like the ones we've seen in welterweight, featherweight, middleweight. The UFC's bantamweight division has been a roller coaster ride. Maybe the crown is just too heavy to hold. The question is, will there be another twist in the tale? We will find the answer when Aljamain Sterling puts his title on the line against Henry Cejudo at UFC 288. So far, in this story, Henry is the only recent champ who the crown might not be too heavy for. He was never stripped nor injured, and he's the only double champion in bantamweight history. That being said, you just watched our video on why the UFC bantamweight division is cursed. Give us your thoughts on today's topic in the comments below. If you liked our content, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you get notified the next time we upload. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.